Hey, Nancy.
Hey, Dean, how's it going?
Good, thank you. Nancy, tell folks a little bit about, I know a little bit about you. Tell them a little bit about you. And then I have a question to ask you.
Okay, well, I'm a seasoned executive who's had a very versatile background, I guess. I've been in B2B tech, but in a variety of roles, sales, marketing, and product.
Hmm.
I've been in everything from startups to mid-market turnarounds to big global multinationals. Some of those companies have been boring culturally, and some of those companies have been volatile. So it's been quite a ride, and currently now I'm work as a fractional CMO and having a lot of fun.
All right. Nancy, I have a couple of fill in the blank questions for you. I like these because they're not much work for me, and you have to do pretty much all the lifting, so it's nice. You're not limited to one word answers, but just finish this sentence for me because you're working with a lot of companies. You've worked with a lot of companies. You're talking to a lot of prospective clients these days, right? What many clients just don't understand what about marketing.
That it's a science.
Ah, okay. Keep
It's
going.
very mathematical.
Yeah.
It requires that you have processes and technology that allows you to target your audience, your desired audience, in a way that allows you to engage them in conversation and get them interested. And it has become quite mathematical and scientific over the years. It's not just about brand and
Right.
throwing parties. It's really about finding and communicating effectively with potential buyers.
Okay. So then, given that, as you talk to clients and everyone, the thing about marketing is it's one of those things where when you're talking to a company or a client, everyone knows something about marketing,
Yes, they do,
right?
or they think they do.
Or they think they do. When they're talking to you, what do they talk about that you think is overrated? And what do they talk about that you think, what do they not talk about and you think it's criminally underrated? Could be a concept, a platform, a tool, whatever. What's overrated with clients these days? What's underrated?
There's a lot of people talk about events and events
Mhm.
that marketing runs, thinking that we just run events, or they over rotate on the look and feel of the brand, the color schema, the
Right.
logo, etc. So they tend to; those are the most obvious manifestations of marketing, and they tend to, most people tend to focus on that. What they don't focus enough on is really the understanding that marketing has to have of the target audience and the messaging that is required to effectively communicate with that target audience. Um, Everything from how you embed keywords in your website so that you
Right.
get picked up by search engines, that you have, there's a whole science behind search engine optimization. Everything from how you articulate an ad that may display for a prospect to the messages you put in social and the long form content you might put in a research paper or a white paper that you create and put out there. So it's that it's very messaging heavy, and to do that well, you really have to have a really solid understanding of your audience and a solid understanding of your value proposition, and you have to be a good communicator.
What
So
do they overrate? I mean, I'm sorry, what do they underrate? What do you wish more clients sort of understood or wanted or saw the value in?
the direct connection between marketing and revenue.
Right.
And part of the problem is it's often difficult to, measure that in a
Yeah.
company. So you have to have the tools behind the scene and you have to be tracking and measuring marketing's contribution. And sometimes it's an influence, not a direct
Right.
connect. And so you have to be able to show the numbers, and the numbers have to be, based on facts and stuff like that. That's one of the first things that I have to spend a lot of time on
Really?
when I
Okay.
join a company is the measurement system and how we measure and report on building the dashboards and everything else to make sure that we're reporting on the work we do and the ROI of the work we do.
Right. Okay. Imagine that I have a hypothetical for you. Imagine that you're on stage, you're talking to an audience of about 250 people, and every one of them uh, went out on their own yesterday and became fractional CMOs. How would you finish this sentence? For all of you just starting out as fractional CMOs today, you're going to be surprised by what?
How quickly you can integrate into a company, even
Hmm.
if you're only a fractional CMO.
Right. Okay. Tell me about that because I've never gotten that answer before for that question.
It surprises me how quickly I'm able to establish the relationships and the understanding of a company
Right.
so that I become an integral part of both their strategic and tactical execution. And I really thought that people would see me differently as a fractional versus an
Right.
employee of the
Yeah.
firm. And that really hasn't been the case for me.
Because they look at consultants differently, for example.
They definitely look at
Right.
consultants differently. Definitely look at consultants different. Consultants are project oriented. We want
Yes.
to get this one thing done. Whereas when I engage with a company, they typically have priorities for me and things that they need, the reason they're hiring me, and that varies. But invariably, by getting in there and working that to get anything done, you have to really understand, have relationships with the leaders in product, have the
Right.
relationships with the leaders in sales, and you have to work in collaboration with them to get your work done. So there's no way to avoid really being a critical part of the company. At least
Right.
that's been my experience.
So then, pivoting off of an important part of the company, imagine it's day one and you've had some conversations with the CEO and other people on the leadership team leading up to signing the contract. But today's day one of a 1 year engagement. Okay. And the CEO, you're having your official first meeting as part of the engagement with it. And the CEO says, look, Nancy, um, you work with a lot more CEOs than I work with CMOs. So what should or is there anything that I should stop doing as CEO now that you're here so that we get like our money's worth from you? Or is there anything that I should like stop doing? What should I start and or stop doing as CEO to make sure my fractional CMO is, I'm not muting any strengths or preventing anything from happening?
Wow, that's a good one. Hmm.
I can tell you one common scenario. A lot of fractionals is that partly because so many fractionals work with startups, especially, right? Is
Mhm.
that the CEO either is or thinks they are also the head of marketing.
So my sweet spot is with mid-market companies. They're
Yeah.
typically 200 million in revenue and they're trying to get to half a billion.
So how does the
And
CEO screw up what you're trying to accomplish
um,
inadvertently? Hopefully,
by cutting the budget,
yeah,
like without, they look at the program budget of a marketer
right,
as sort of a slush fund they can pull from if they don't
right,
make their numbers. And I'm like, I can't do my contribution if you keep doing that. It's a
right,
constant push pull with the CFO and the CEO about understanding that when we put a plan in place, the plan gets executed over the year. So you don't spend all your money up front, you're spending it over the course of the year. And I don't lock everything down at the beginning of the year because you want
yeah,
flexibility. You've got
yeah.
to
You need
respond
to
to the
be able to
market and what's
adapt.
happening,
Yeah,
right? So you don't spend your money till you're ready to, and yet they seem to think that that means I don't need that money. It's really
right,
frustrating. It really is. So I have to say to them, look, it's not. I'm not playing with this money. That's the second thing, in addition to establishing a dashboard that I do, is I control the spend.
right,
Look at every vendor, every agreement, understand everything we're spending money on, and I'm the only one who gets to approve the spend in marketing. I don't delegate that to anybody. I that spreadsheet is mine and nobody touches it but me.
Right.
And I make sure that finance is really clear about, my master of the spend, because then that helps alleviate that problem.
All right.
It doesn't, it alleviates it a little bit. I guess I should say tempers the problem.
Okay.
Never quite goes away.
No. Okay. So the economy's been all over the place for the last few years, and some industries like peaked during COVID and others crashed during COVID, and then there was like a reversal. Like right now, based on economic outlooks, and like, how do you think the economy is influencing marketing budgets and marketing priorities right now with your clients?
It's tight.
Yeah.
The economy is really tight. We The industries that I've been in, that I'm working in right now, are doing their post COVID dip recovery.
Right.
So huge growth during COVID, dip after COVID, now trying to find the new norm. Um, the So it's challenging, and there's been some consolidation in the industry, which tends to be good for the industry.
Right.
At least I find if you're competitive, it's good. But it's a tough market, and
Do you
it's
think?
putting pressure on the budget. Definitely.
Well, which is why it has to be protected from people who want to dig into it.
People who want to take it away.
Do you think there are any like channels or platforms or tools that are going to be critical for 2025 for marketing?
Obviously, tools that can help us find our target audience, who's active in market.
Right.
Those are increasingly, my concern is they will become less effective with privacy laws and all that sort of thing. And they're already, difficult. It's really difficult to find people in market
Right.
in Europe. And, that becomes, continues to be a challenge, as well as the fact that people don't want to be marketed to. And so we have to have intelligent conversations with our prospects as much as possible. And so really content creation tools. Now, there's generative AI,
Right.
and you have to use generative AI, but you have to do so very carefully, because you still need to have your own voice, your own tone, your own perspective. You don't want to sound like a robot. It's important to have personality in a conversation, and tell an effective story. But all those, generative AI tools are going to make everybody sound the same at the end of the day. And so it's going to, breaking through the noise is going to be increasingly difficult. That said, you still need to use the tools, because they can greatly increase your productivity. We use them for storyboarding and brainstorming all the time. And then we step back from it and frame what we want to do. So think of first draft kind of thing.
Right.
Really effective for that.
I saw someone point out it was just like a short thing on LinkedIn, or maybe it was just a tweet that said like a skill that millions of people acquire every day now that no one knew existed 2 years ago was how to instantly recognize that AI wrote that. And the more you read, the more you can sort of tell what AI wrote, especially as a first draft thing. And it's a skill no one had 2 years ago and never thought that they would need. But we have it all most of us have it now.
And the other skill is to ask effective questions to an
Yeah.
AI engine.
So we talked about up and down, especially, and the economy, and that's also led to a lot of marketing people like being in the open marketplace, and don't have placements, right? Are the companies that are looking for great people, like what challenges do they face now that they have too many people
To
and
choose from.
AI probably in the mix, looking for work?
So let me make sure I understand what you're asking. If
Well,
I was the
before
CEO,
it
if
was a
I was the
tighter
CEO,
labor market, it was hard to find necessarily the people you needed. Now there are way too many people looking for work. So how do you hire somebody that's great? How do you find that gem? How do you staff up?
Okay, so I think, first of all, I think people are just generally ineffective at hiring,
Yeah,
generally. Um, it's really important to understand what skills you need somebody to bring to the table, and to understand, do they have those specific skills? Too often people interview based on chemistry. I don't rule out chemistry.
right,
Chemistry is important, but you really want to understand that somebody has the particular experience and demonstrable skill that you need. I think that in an interview process, we have to be asking people questions like, here's the scenario, what do you do? Demonstrate for me how you would handle this problem. I
right,
have seen, on the flip side, a lot of companies basically stealing people's intellectual property by asking them to do a lot in the interview process,
yep,
where they ask somebody to put a strategic marketing plan together. Here's their thing. Can you put a marketing plan together and present it to us? And that's going to be your interview. And then, thanks, we'll just take this plan and we'll have
yeah,
our team execute it. It is it is challenging. So I think that it's important that they do understand what they're looking for and take the time to really understand what they need, and that they then ask the right kind of questions.
right. And then as we wind down, let's flip that question. How either how do you find your clients, or how do you advise fractional CMOs to find their next client?
All of my clients have come through my network.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't yet joined a consortium or a group. Um, I may do that at some point in time because that might be a way to do it. But so far, I haven't needed to do that. I've been able to leverage. People have come to me looking for something,
Right.
and it's worked out that it's been me or others in my network. So I think it's important to have relationships with key people, because I've held positions in product and in sales. And I worked with a lot of CEOs in my target market, which is the $200 million space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, advising them on go-to-market strategy and that sort of thing in my past. I do have a pretty solid network of people out there. So, and also I think, so if I were to advise somebody on what they need to do, and they didn't have a network, I think joining a consortium of other practitioners is probably helpful. But I also think it's important to know what it is that you as an individual do and do really well.
Right.
So I know what I can do really well, and I know things I don't do really well.
Yeah,
And so if somebody's looking for somebody
that
to,
is an underrated aspect of selling and marketing, Nancy. People are not don't want to admit that they don't or can't do something or really shouldn't be doing something. Right? I talk to my prospective clients. I'll be talking to them, and they'll talk about, well, what about this and what about that? And I say, look, I am world class at 4.5 things, and I suck at a million things. So I only sell the 4.5.
yeah,
I
yeah.
can introduce you to people, but you don't want me to do that. You'll way overpay for what you could get someone else to do that for.
And I think that's an important thing to articulate. I
Yeah.
mean, we need to be honest about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I've said to clients, look, that's not what you need.
Right.
You need, there are people who are looking for subcontractors and that sort of thing, and there's companies out there that do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Being willing to admit what you don't do, or turning away work where they only want you to do X. It's like, that's not me. Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think at this point in my life, I prefer to do work that I'm good at, because
Yeah.
it's much more enjoyable.
Yeah. For everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, Nancy, this has been great. Thanks so much for this. Who should be contacting you these days? Like, what kind of problem are they trying to solve, or what are their characteristics? So, who should contact you these days, and how do you want them to do it?
Companies that or people that are trying to set their go-to-market strategy
Mhm.
and align it and make sure that product marketing and sales are all working in the same boat. I speak the language of all of those organizations. People who want to scale their marketing function, who need to take it to the next level to grow the company, those are places that I excel in. Managing the money, managing the the measurement of marketing and showing ROI.
Right.
Anybody who's in private equity, I tend to work with a lot of private equity based companies because private equity is looking for that kind of discipline in its functional organizations. And you can contact me through LinkedIn, and my LinkedIn profile is right underneath my picture.
All right. And for the people who are listening, it's linkedin.com/in, and then it's Nancy Maluso, and Nancy's last name is Maluso. Okay, Nancy, thank you so much for this.
Thanks, Dean.
Stick around
Appreciate
for
it.
a minute because I need to tell you something. But everyone else, thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next time.